Wizards. Wizards are magic users who take the energies in the world around them and mold them to their use. Wizards are not good fighters, but gain spells the fastest, and have the most amount of magical power. The wizards have mana for 26 spell slots. Wizards are most proficient at quarterstaffs, whips, and other lighter weapons. A wizard will usually adorn her staff with a precious stone of some sort. This stone is used as a channel for their magic and lets their magic stamina last longer. While using a stone, only half the spell slot is used per spell. A heavy weapon, such as a broadsword, would not be much use to a wizard, due to the weight of the weapon. Wizards wear long, flowing wizard robes, and do not use armor, as it is too heavy. A wizard is of average height but is usually more on the skinny side. A wizard will usually get his robes enchanted so that they can serve as armor. A good outfit to start with for a wizard is a quarterstaff, small silver or gold knife that wizards collect spell comments with, and maybe some bolos. A wizard needs to be restocking his spell components as they use them. A wizard also needs to have time to study their spell books. Each wizard has books that contain all of their spells, and these are usually guarded with magic to prevent thievery. A person attempting to read a wizard's stolen spellbook will usually go mad from the attempt. Wizards have the ability to attack, or try to take over, another wizard's mind. A wizard cannot attack a cleric's mind, only another wizard's mind. In this battle, the luck of the dice is the only factor. When the wizards attack, you roll the 20-sided die one time for the wizards, and then one time for the enemy. You roll for 6 to 8 times, and whoever gets the better average rolls wins the battle and is under control of the other. Each turn the controlled person has the chance to try to break out, but with only one roll. While a wizard is in a mind battle, they are totally defenseless, and are at the mercy of those around them for the length of the battle. Wizards need to make sure that they have protection while entering a mind battle. The mind that the wizard is attacking is also in the same state of helplessness. A wizard has the chance to acquire a familiar by joining minds with another creature's mind. A familiar helps protect the wizard and also helps the wizard to learn spells. A wizard will usually acquire a weaker familiar if they are just starting, such as an owl, cat, dog, falcon, eagle, or giant lizard. If a wizard waits till she has gained strength, then they may acquire a more powerful familiar, such as a lion, tiger, manticore, baby dragon, or imp. The familiar must agree to join with the wizard. The joining cannot be forced. The familiar and the wizard form a mind link, and they both gain from the link. The wizard gains protection, companionship, and the ability to gain spells about Earth more quickly. The familiar gains greatly increased intelligence, usually to the point of being able to speak to others. A wizard may have only one familiar at a time, and they stay with that familiar until it dies. Due to the mind link, a wizard may die when his familiar dies. The dice will decide if she lives or dies. A wizard uses some of the same spells as clerics but has many more to choose from. The wizard receives spells from the top of the list first. A wizard will start with the following. Web, a large sticky web that the wizard can throw out to capture an enemy. Duration is dice dependent. Wall, a stone wall that can block incoming objects or people, 4 feet wide by 6 feet high. Duration is dice dependent. Light, creates a ball of light that you can see by for a certain time. Duration is dice dependent. Lifting, the ability to lift objects, or people, into the air, and to move them about. Duration is dice dependent. Sleep, puts the target to sleep for a certain amount of time. Duration is dice dependent. Ice, ability to throw ice or freeze target areas in ice. Fire, ability to throw fire at the target. The following are some spells wizards can earn. Extended list. Minor spells. Speed, doubles the target's speed up to 4 moves per turn. Duration is dice dependent. Slow, slows down the target to half the normal speed. Duration is dice dependent. Detect traps. The caster can detect all traps in a certain area. Duration is dice dependent. Disarm traps. All traps in a certain area are nullified. Harmonize. The caster can change their voice to match any voice they have ever heard. Duration is dice dependent. Personal protection. Causes a protective covering around the wizard companion that can withstand various amounts of hits. The amount of hits is determined by one roll of the die. Friendship. The caster becomes best friends with the target of the spell. Duration is dice dependent. Pegasus. The steed of the caster grows wings and can fly. Duration is dice dependent. Magic missile. An item is hurled, a rock or arrow, that when hit causes the damage of a small missile. A new spell must be cast for each object thrown. Blinding wind. The wind comes at the caster's call to cause blindness in the target. Duration is dice dependent. Moonblade. The caster creates a blade out of moonlight to fight with. Duration is dice dependent. The blade causes great damage to the undead and blinds all evil beings that look at it. Disguise. The caster can take the disguise of anyone she has ever seen. Duration is dice dependent. Rebuke. The caster causes the target to not want to battle with him, her anymore. Duration is dice dependent. Holy tune. The caster sings a song that causes all evil, especially the undead, who hear it to become stunned for 3 rounds. Message. The caster can send any of her companions a message, no matter how far away they are. Grenadier. The wizard hurls an exploding grenade that causes a shrapnel-based attack. This will hurt wizard's companions as well. Burning hands. Lets the wizard's hands catch on fire so that when they touch something it burns up, doors or enemies, for example. Mid-level spells. Rigor mortis. The target of the spell becomes stiff as a board and can't move. Animal madness. The target becomes mad and attacks anything close to it. Duration is dice dependent. Mark. The caster makes it so that she knows where the target is at all times. Duration is dice dependent. The caster has had to have seen the target at some point for the spell to work. Easy climb. The caster can run up a rope or climb any structure with ease. Duration is dice dependent. Body of thorns. The caster grows large thorns all over their body. These thorns are poisonous. Duration is dice dependent. Water walk. Allows the target to walk on liquids. This could be water, fog, thin ice, or any unlit volatile substance. Duration is dice dependent. Blinding light. Causes a light that will cause blindness to all who look at it. Dozer. The target can move anything out of their path for 30 feet. This can be a door, enemy, or non-magical attack. Magical attacks and spells are not affected by this spell. Chain. The target is sent away 66 feet in the direction of the caster's choosing. Entrapment. The target is trapped in place and can't move. Duration is dice dependent. Backfire. The attack coming at the target is turned to the side and misses. Spell is one-time use. Iceblade. Caster calls forth a sword made of ice to fight with.
Clerics.
Duration is dice dependent.
Type of magic users that use mind
Arrow
magic.
storm. Causes a hail,
Cleric's
30 to
is
40,
mostly
of
defensive
arrows
at
to hit a
first
certain
and then
area.
progresses to more offensive spells.
Fireblade. Caster
The
calls
cleric's
forth
job
a
is to
sword
keep
made
all
of
the other
fire to
players
fight
alive,
with.
by
Duration
healing
is
and by
dice
saving them
dependent.
if they get themselves in trouble.
Moving eye. The
Cleric's
caster can
amulets,
see through
the
any
symbol they
substance,
wear around their
and in any
necks that
direction
depict
for
their
up to
deity,
100
also
feet.
grant them
Duration
additional
is
powers.
dice dependent.
When a cleric
Grip
is
of
wearing
flame.
his,
The
her
caster's
amulet,
hands
the
become
cleric is
encased
immune
in
to
fire,
poison,
and when they
cannot be
strike the
tied up by
target it receives
non-magical
strike and
means.
fire damage. duration is dice dependent. Heart ripper. In one swift motion, the caster rips the target's heart out with their hands or any other object they are holding. Sonic blast causes a force of blasting sound to knock over everything in a certain area. Hardness. The caster's weapon, arrow, becomes strengthened to a super hardness, and is thus able to penetrate armor or doors much easier. Stunning causes an enemy to become stunned for a certain time. Duration is dice dependent. Pupil servant. An eye comes to the bidding of the caster that can travel at large, up to 1 mile, and the caster sees through the eye. Duration is dice dependent. Thunderclap. The caster claps her hands together, causing a mighty noise that stuns all who hear it for 1 round. This does affect the caster's companions. Steel bands. Steel bands wrap up a target. Duration is dice dependent. Weapon heat causes all weapons on the targeted person to heat up. Duration is dice dependent. Air thickens causes air to thicken, creating a barrier to stop weapons, enemies from advancing. Duration is dice dependent. Blinding weapons causes all the target's weapons to become exceedingly shiny and reflect all light in the area. Does not affect the target. Duration is dice dependent. Metal melt causes the target metal to become red hot and melt. Brain rot causes the target to get a migraine, and then to die in 3 turns if not healed. Binding wind. The wind comes to the caster's bidding to tie up the target. Duration is dice dependent. Magical binding causes magical ropes to tie up an individual of the wizard's choosing. Duration is dice dependent. Enchanted steed. Caster calls forth a steed with speed and endurance 5 times that of a regular steed. Duration is dice dependent. Fire spiders. The caster calls forth 5 3-foot-tall spiders made of fire to attack the target. Duration is dice dependent. Terror. The caster causes the target to become terrified of an unknown being. Duration is dice dependent. Darkness claws. Caster grows 4 large claws made of shadow. Duration is dice dependent. Sandblast. The caster causes blinding sand to shoot from their fingers. This sand has the power to melt flesh from bones. Duration is dice dependent. Train animal. Any animal will instantly be trained to serve the needs of the caster. The size of the animal is dependent on the strength of the caster. Duration is dice dependent. Tracking. The caster can track the target anywhere, even over water or rock. Duration is dice dependent. Fire splash. When the target is hit with a fireball, everything in a 3-foot radius around the target also receives fire damage. Enchant object. Caster enchants an object, causing it to become more powerful, or in the case of weapons, causing more damage. Duration is dice dependent. Hot steam. The caster blows forth a burning hot blast of steam for 3 seconds that scalds and burns all it hits. Disorientation causes enemies to become confused and either miss shots, or not hit with melee attacks. Duration is dice dependent. Lion heart causes the target to only want to help the companions out. Duration is dice dependent. Fear causes the enemy to run in fear from the caster. Duration is dice dependent. Distracting. The caster causes a noise to sound to draw away the attention of guards or enemies. The time they will look for the cause of the noise depends on the strength of the caster. Blindness causes the target to become blind. Duration is dice dependent. Evil eye. The caster glares at the target, causing them to freeze in for as long as the caster glares at them. Madness can cause the target to become insane, attacking everyone around the target. In this state, the target has increased strength, agility, and the ability to receive multiple mortal wounds without dying. Duration is dice dependent. Guardian fire. A ball of fire surrounds the caster, shooting small fireballs at nearby enemies, duration is dice dependent. Guardian ice, a ball of ice surrounds the caster, shooting small ice balls at nearby enemies, duration is dice dependent. Missile chain, the caster causes 6 to 10 missiles to fly at the target. Guardian acid, a ball of acid surrounds the caster, shooting small acid balls at nearby enemies. Duration is dice dependent. Songbird, anyone trying to listen to the caster's conversation will only hear the songbirds chirping, duration is dice dependent. Ball of healing, a glowing ball surrounds the caster, healing all friendly units nearby, and the caster, as they are hurt, duration is dice dependent. Stone walk, the caster can walk through solid stone, duration is dice dependent. Wave of slime, the caster calls forth a 6-foot tall, 3-foot wide wave of flesh-eating slime, duration is dice dependent. Phantom stag, the caster calls forth a large stag made of shadows that can act as protection, guide, or as a scout for the caster. The caster can see through the eyes of the stag, duration is dice dependent. The stag is only hurt from magical weapons and attacks. Plaque of rats, a swarm of rats, 30 to 40, attached to the target, duration is dice dependent. Moon rapture, the target gets enthralled by the moon and ignores everything else, duration is dice dependent. Spider spell, the caster can climb and jump with the agility of a spider, duration is dice dependent. Chameleon spell, the caster can blend into any background to avoid detection. The caster must move slowly for the spell to keep the caster hidden. Duration is dice dependent. Mana pilfer, caster takes 1/2 of the spell slots of the target to recharge his/her own. Mountain stance, the caster can withstand any rush attack and not be moved. The caster has his/her feet planted with the power of the mountains, duration is dice dependent. Rhino charge, the target can slam into their enemy with the strength of a rhinoceros's charge. Nightmare lullaby, the caster sings a song that causes the target to have their worst nightmare while still awake, duration is dice dependent. Living snow, the caster causes the snow in an area to become a frozen beast with claws and fangs. 3 beasts can be created from any one area of snow, duration is dice dependent. Ooze, the caster can slip through any space or opening, no matter how small, duration is dice dependent. Strengthen familiar, the caster's familiar becomes super-powered, with the ability to leap far, becomes armor-covered, strength is upgraded, and speed increased, duration is dice dependent. Melt, the caster, target becomes a pool of liquid and can squeeze through any opening, or dodge an attack, duration is dice dependent. Scimitar, the caster calls forth a huge scimitar that attacks the target for the caster, duration is dice dependent. Iron arrow, caster shoots an arrow of iron at the target from his/her hand. The arrow flies twice as fast as a normal arrow. This arrow pierces all non-magical armor and causes all magical protection to fail for 1 turn. Acid dart, the caster shot 6 acid darts from their hand. This dart flies at twice the speed of a normal arrow. Reverse, the caster causes the attack to turn back on the attacker. Wards, caster can set a magic perimeter guard around a place, such as a campsite, or around an object, such as his spellbook. The wards may cause a ball of fire, bolt of lightning, paralyzing attack, or a ball of acid. Shadow radiance, the caster causes a dark aura to surround them, stealing the light from the general vicinity, duration is dice dependent. Earth ripple, a wave of earth rolls towards the enemies, knocking them down. Multicolored shield, the caster creates a shield of 4 colors. Red blocks fire, white blocks ice, gray blocks ranges attacks, and orange blocks magical spells. The shield can take 4 hits for each color before no longer stopping that substance. Duration is dice dependent. Ghost trap. The caster calls forth a phantom spirit to grab hold of the target. The target becomes paralyzed and can't move. Duration is dice dependent. Thunder. A great booming noise causes the target's bones to shake and crack. Bubble. Causes a bubble around the wizard, companion to act as a protective barrier. Can also capture enemies in a bubble. Duration is dice dependent. Summon beholder. The caster calls forth a beholder to fight for him. Her duration is dice dependent. The beholder has lightning, ice, fire, and a stunning main eye attack. The beholder can attack 2 action rounds per turn. Stone skin. The caster's skin gets the hardness of stone, deflecting a certain number of attacks. Duration is dice dependent. Lightning. The caster can hurl a large bolt of lightning at a target. Usually fatal. Dreamwalker. The caster can leave his physical body and move around as a spectre for up to 10 miles. This spectre can pass through solid objects and is only detected by magical means. Duration is dice dependent. Fire. Ice ball. Caster hurls a ball made of fire, ice at the enemy and it does the damage of both elements, without cancelling the other out. Iron horn. Caster changed into a large bull elephant, 2 tons, that has a set of iron horns. Duration is dice dependent. The elephant's skin is as strong as good plate armor. Nauseating breath. The caster spews forth a choking, stinking cloud that renders the target unable to breathe. Duration is dice dependent. Major spells. Transformation. Wizards can transform into an animal of choice. Animal size and strength will depend on the wizard's ability. Duration is dice dependent. Phase. Caster can move from one patch of light to another. The caster must see both the starting and end points. Ferocity. The caster causes the target to become exceedingly ferocious, and the target can now take 3 to 4 mortal hits before being stopped. Duration is dice dependent. Dragon might. Caster receives the strength of a small dragon. Duration is dice dependent. Extract water. The caster pulls all the water out of the target, causing them to fall unconscious, and if not healed in one turn, die. Sink, drown. The caster causes the target to sink, drown into any substance they may be standing. The target cannot breathe in any of the target substances. Halo of fire. A ring of fire surrounds the enemy's head, burning downward. Ice lightning. Caster casts a bolt of lightning that hits a target, but then breaks into many small bolts to hit up to 6 adjacent targets. Summon wandering monster. The caster calls forth the closest wandering monster, but has no control over what may come. Multiplication. An image of the caster, companion comes forth to confuse the attacker for a certain time. Duration is dice dependent. The image has no attack ability, and the caster takes no damage if the image is hit. Phantom attacks. The caster changes into a shadow to attack. The shadow attacks by taking over their victim's body. Only magic weapons and spells may affect the caster while in shadow form. Duration is dice dependent. Living tattoo. The caster causes an image to appear on the target, and this image comes alive and attacks the target. Duration is dice dependent. Living tornado. The caster calls up a tornado that follows the direction of the caster. Duration is dice dependent. Mind attack. Caster can attack the mind of others, even non-magical beings and clerics. Invisibility. Caster vanishes from sight. Duration is dice dependent. While invisibly, the caster cannot be detected by magic or non-magic means. If the caster attacks or does magic, then the spell is broken. Hellish hordes. Calls forth 10 demons armed with claws and fangs to protect the caster. Duration is dice dependent. Wall of death. Caster calls forth a wall of spinning razors to stop an enemy's advance, or to destroy approaching range weapons. Duration is dice dependent. Doom Tide. The caster calls forth waves of blinding darkness that cause all who are hit to become weak, blind, and confused. Duration is dice dependent. Teleport. The caster moves from one point to another, instantly. The caster must see the beginning and the end of the target locations. Gate. The caster opens a doorway between 2 points, and it stays open so that others can travel through it. The length of time that the doorway stays open is proportional to the strength of the caster. The caster can close the gate at any time. The caster has had to have been in each of the 2 gate terminals. Anti-magic. The caster causes all magic in an area to become nullified. Duration is dice dependent. The caster still can use magic. Firestorm. The wizard calls forth a massive firestorm to destroy an area. Wizard's companions will also die if they are in the storm radius. Submerged ship. The caster causes the ship she is on to be able to travel underwater as if a submarine. Duration is dice dependent. Ice elemental. Wizard calls forth a being made of ice to attack the enemies. Earth elemental. Wizard calls forth a being made of rock to attack the enemies. Cloning 2 to 4 copies of the caster appear, each bearing the weapons of the caster when the spell was cast. Duration is dice dependent. The caster controls the actions of the clones. The clones cause damage, but the caster takes no damage if the clones are hit. Death Wish. The target of the spell dies instantly. Flesh to stone. Cause an enemy to turn to stone. Duration is dice dependent. Stone to flesh. The ability to turn a stone statue, companion back to life. In the case of a statue, the now flesh being will serve the wizard for a certain time. Duration is dice dependent. Fire elemental. Wizard calls forth a being made of fire to attack the enemies. Duration is dice dependent. Ice storm. The wizard calls forth a massive ice storm to destroy an area. Wizard's companions will also die if they are in the storm radius.